You're standing in the kitchen when your phone lights up. It's the family group chat. Someone is confirming the time for a gathering this weekend. There will be food, small talk, old tensions disguised as jokes, and at least one conversation you already know will leave you drained. You type, "I'm not coming this time." Almost immediately, the questions begin. Why not? Is something wrong? Can't you come for just an hour? A few years ago, you might have explained everything. The exhausting week, the long drive, the relative who makes comments about your life, the fact that you haven't slept well, the errands you need to finish, the feeling that you simply cannot spend another afternoon pretending to be comfortable. You would have built a case. You would have presented evidence. You would have tried to make your absence understandable enough that nobody could accuse you of being selfish. But now you look at the screen and type, "I just won't be there." And then you put the phone down. To some people, this looks cold. They may say you've become stubborn, distant, bitter, or impatient. They may joke that you no longer care what anyone thinks. But perhaps the real change is not that you stopped caring. Perhaps you stopped believing that every boundary needs a courtroom defense. For many Gen X women, the most noticeable transformation is not the decisions they make. It is the disappearance of the long explanation that used to follow those decisions. "No, I can't help this weekend." "I'm leaving this job." "I don't want to discuss that." "That doesn't work for me." The sentences become shorter. The emotional packaging disappears. And that can be unsettling to people who were accustomed to receiving not only your answer, but also your apology, your reassurance, and a detailed account proving that your needs were legitimate. Because explaining yourself is not always simple communication. Sometimes it is emotional labor. You are not only sharing information, you are monitoring the other person's reaction. You are choosing softer words. You are anticipating disappointment. You are making sure your boundary does not sound like criticism. You are trying to prevent anger before it appears. Instead of saying, "I need the weekend alone," you say, "I've had such a busy week, and I have laundry, and I need to catch up on a few things, and I'm really tired, so maybe it would be better if I stayed home." The message is not merely that you need rest. The message is, "Please agree that I have earned the right to rest." Over time, this becomes exhausting. You may begin to notice that some people are not asking for an explanation because they want to understand you. They are asking because they want material to negotiate with. You say you're tired and they tell you everyone is tired. You mention the drive and they offer to pick you up. You explain that you feel uncomfortable and they insist you are overreacting. Every reason becomes a problem they can solve, dismiss, or debate. Until one day, you realize something quietly radical. Your decision does not become valid only after someone else approves of your reasoning. That realization can mark a shift from external permission to internal authority. In psychology, this is sometimes described through the idea of an internal locus of control. In ordinary language, it means you increasingly experience your life as something you are allowed to direct. You still listen to advice. You still understand consequences. You still care about the people around you. But you no longer treat every opinion as a vote. Perhaps you change careers in your 50s. People ask whether it is practical, whether you are too old to start over, whether you have considered all the risks. In the past, you might have prepared a presentation defending your choice. Now you say, "Yes, I've considered it." And you stop there. Not because you are unaware of the risks, but because awareness does not obligate you to convince everyone else. For some Gen X women, this kind of self-trust may be connected to a lifetime of learning how to handle things independently. Many grew up in environments where children were expected to become capable early. Emotional struggles were not always discussed in detail. Problems were often handled privately. Competence was praised more openly than vulnerability. This context does not describe every woman, and it does not determine anyone's personality. But it can help explain why some women became exceptionally skilled at functioning without much reassurance. You learn to solve the problem. Make the phone call, find a ride, calm yourself down, avoid burdening anyone. Keep moving. Repeated often enough, capability becomes more than something you do. It becomes who you believe you are. That can create genuine strength. But strength developed through necessity can have a hidden cost. When you have spent decades being the one who handles everything, receiving care may feel unfamiliar. Explaining fear may feel more dangerous than solving the problem alone. Depending on someone may feel less like intimacy and more like losing control. So when a woman stops explaining herself, silence can mean more than one thing. For one woman, silence comes from confidence. She knows what she needs. She can tolerate someone being disappointed. She does not become hostile when questioned, but she also does not collapse into guilt. When she says no, she remains calm. When someone disagrees, she does not feel compelled to change the answer. And when a conversation is respectful, she can still explain her reasoning. Her silence is not a wall. It is a choice. But another woman may stop explaining for a very different reason. She may have tried to speak honestly many times. She explained why a joke hurt her, only to be told she was too sensitive. She explained why she needed help, only to hear that she had always managed before. She explained why a family pattern exhausted her, and the conversation became an argument about whether she was allowed to feel exhausted. Eventually, she learned that explanations did not create understanding. They created cross-examinations, so she stopped offering them. From the outside, these two women may look identical. Both say, "I don't need to discuss it." But one means, "I have made peace with my decision." The other means, "Nothing I say will change how you see me." One woman feels free. The other feels resigned. That is why refusing to explain yourself is not automatically confidence, and it is not automatically emotional shutdown. The deeper question is whether you still feel that you have a choice. Can you explain yourself when explanation would create closeness? Can you speak honestly with someone who has shown that they can listen without immediately correcting you? Can you offer context without feeling as though you are asking for permission? And can you remain silent when someone is not seeking connection, but control? Healthy boundaries tend to be flexible. With a trusted friend, you may say, "I'm not coming because I've been overwhelmed and I need some quiet." With someone who routinely argues with your limits, you may simply say, "I won't be there." The difference is not inconsistency, it is discernment. You are deciding who receives access to your inner world. For many women, this becomes an identity-level shift. Perhaps you spent years being useful, reasonable, dependable, and emotionally manageable. You were the woman who made everything easier for everyone else. You softened the truth. You anticipated needs. You explained your choices so carefully that nobody would confuse your independence with rejection. And somewhere along the way, being understood became connected to being good. If they understood your reason, maybe you were not selfish. If they approved of your boundary, maybe you were still loving. If nobody was upset with you, maybe you had done the right thing. Then the explanations begin to disappear and a more uncomfortable question emerges. Do you still believe you are a good woman when someone else is unhappy with you? That may be the real test. Not whether you can say no, but whether you can survive being misunderstood without abandoning yourself. And yet, there is another question worth asking with equal honesty. Are you silent because you no longer need approval, or because you no longer believe anyone will listen? Does your silence feel peaceful, or does it feel lonely? You do not need to answer immediately. Simply notice what happens inside you the next time you are asked to justify a decision. Notice whether your body feels steady or defensive. Notice whether you are protecting your energy or protecting yourself from disappointment. Notice whether you want privacy or whether part of you has given up on being known. The goal is not to explain everything, and it is not to become unreachable. It is to stop confusing accessibility with obligation. Understanding is valuable, but it is not permission. Closeness may deserve context, but control does not deserve a defense. So return to that woman standing in the kitchen. Her phone is still on the counter. The family gathering will happen without her. Someone may complain. Someone may call her difficult. But her short answer no longer tells us everything. It may be the sound of a woman trusting her own judgment. It may be the result of decades spent translating her needs into language everyone else could approve. Or it may conceal the grief of someone who once tried to be understood and eventually stopped expecting it. The most important question is not whether she explains herself anymore. It is whether she still feels free to choose when to speak, who is safe enough to hear the truth, and when her answer is already complete. If you recognized yourself in this, share what silence means in your life, and subscribe for more conversations about the psychology behind the choices we rarely explain.